Okay, so I got the honor of being asked to help judge the competition at the convention this year. And it turns out that honor comes with being on the hook to make a lecture or a presentation at the convention. And I don't like that idea. And I didn't want to do a lecture because I'm not that fascinated with anything that I think about or think that I know about shooting horses. And I didn't want to do a demonstration because it was like, what could I demonstrate that someone else could demonstrate better? And so I was like, what could I do? Well, I'm obsessed with the history and the traditions of the trade, and I also think it's always important to find a way to be saying thank you to the people who helped you kind of find your way as a farrier in the world. And so I got one of these guys to help me. Before I ever picked up a hook or a hammer, my life pretty much revolved around reading and writing and sitting and thinking about reading and writing. And so now, being a farrier, I usually think of everything through the lens of something that I've read. I didn't necessarily want to bring that to all you guys here at the convention, but I thought maybe I could use it to pull a thread from life as we look at Craig's life. When I was thinking about what I would ask Craig in the interview, it reminds me of this poem by John Ashby called Self-Portraits in a Convex Mirror. And the poem is about a painting of a painter who's looking in a mirror that's shaped like a half dome. And he's recording what he sees in the mirror reflected back to him, but obviously from an unusual perspective. I imagine Craig being young and wanting to be better at shooting than anyone else, wanting to win, and looking at the farrier world like the painter in that poem, sitting down with great art to copy all he saw in the glass, so as to perfect and rule out the extraneous forever. Ashbery's poem says that someday we will try to do as many things as are possible, and perhaps we will succeed at a handful of them. But it will have nothing to do with what is promised today, our landscape sweeping away from us on the horizon. So before I lose everybody by reading the poem, I just want to say it's not a bridge too far to understand the farrier looking into the horseshoe world and making himself a part of the landscape that he sees around him, while also using that landscape to reinterpret what the whole world around him could look like going forward. To me, it's like as Craig proceeds through making the mark that he has in this industry and all of us, he's constantly reimagining what's possible for it and for all of us as we follow along. Like in the Ashbery poem, we have surprised him at work, but no, he surprised us as he works. So, Craig Trnka. Alright, I kind of wanted to start, I listened to every podcast you've been on. It's all articles like to find, even two new ones from way back in the booth. I never hear you talk about the South Carolina how you got over there, and how long you was there. And I know a little bit about the Manetta Mooney when you was out there.
Well, what a lot of people don't understand is like the only information that we had before the internet was you got the American Farrier Journal, you got the Anvil, you got magazines, and they had dates in them. So you were like, you had to put on schedule, like how you were going to get better. And in the magazines, you saw Grant Moon. And so Grant Moon was like, he was like this deal that you were like, man, I need to get some tutoring from him. And so Jack Schwartz was having, he was having clinics under the pecan trees in his yard about once every 8 weeks, so you could kind of schedule it in. And then I would just buy a plane ticket. You go out there, and that's where you met like those 11 people under there. You met Mike Ward, and you met all like Greg Davis, Bob Davis, and then Billy Lewis. You know, we were all under there, and Grant would like have you do stuff and then go back and do it. And we were all under there, and it was almost like a graduating class. It was like we were all together, we were all, and we had a bunch of fun, and then a few other people would take it on, and they would like, we went to another person's shop and did it, but like, I spent, I'll bet you, I flew to South Carolina probably, I'll bet we did that for several years. And it was like, Grant Moon was just like, that was my window into the information highway. And then I met all those people, and we've been friends ever since. Like that was like I say, you know, that's where I got to know Billy Lewis, and I got to know all these people that would go there, and they're like, do you remember going to Jack Schwartz's and had going to those clinics. And then I figured that that's where I needed to live. So I went out there for a year, and I just thought the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. But when you're from the West and the East and the West, I was like, they had this weird thing called humidity and heat. And I said, screw this, I'm going back home. Where it's dry. So I just didn't get along with the weather. It was like terrible. Like, who wants to have your underwear wet? That's what I was
So that's where you learn the oscillation.
Once you see it, like once you see that once you see excellence, once you see like the team, once you get introduced to Jim Moore and you get introduced to all that, there's just no way you can turn your back on it. You can't just say, well, that's cool. Those guys try and do that good, but I'm a working man. Yeah, I don't need that. So it's like once you get introduced to it, then you're obsessed with it. And if you don't become obsessed with it, then I can't relate to people who aren't obsessed with it.
So like, then the 91 convention that was here, just when you want the hardcore class.
Yeah, when I was, this was the first time that I would try to go full tilt for it, and I practiced those hard bars. Like, Bruce Daniels said, well, the only way you get to make a good heel cock is if you fill a 55-gallon drum. So like, I took that literally. I was like, well, I'm going to fill the 55-gallon drum in. And I won the hard bar class, and I became first alternate on the team. And in those days, we didn't have internet, we didn't have phones. If you had a phone, it was a big bag phone that had like a supercharger bolted to the back wall of your truck with an antenna, and it was like, you only talked half sentences because it cost so much. You're like, hey, I'll be there, and then you hang up as soon as possible so they can charge the shit out of you.
If you moved back to New Mexico by then,
Yeah, I moved back then because I just was like, it just wasn't happening. And I kept flying out there to the Grant Moon clinics and stuff like that, but it was like that's all you do. You just obsess. Just obsess.
No, I was thinking because it's counterintuitive to people, but a great way to make some time in your life if you want to make a team and stuff. Move somewhere and start over.
Yeah, well, people don't forgive you either. If you ever move from your area and you move back, you're considered a traitor, and they hate your guts forever. Because I still live in the area where I moved away from and then moved back, and it's like people will never forgive you. But that's all right. I don't really care about it.
So then the 92 is your first year fully on there. You're on there. You made the team with Grant.
Yeah, I made the team with it was like an all-star cast. I think we started off, it changed around a bunch, but it was Grant, Bruce Daniels, Dave Russell, and it ended up, I think it was Dan Howland ended up competing on our team after it was all said and done. But it was like, holy cow, it was like, that was just like, you were, like if you got to be on the all-star team with Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, it was just like, man, this is it.
Yeah, last year I was at this guy's clinic and now I'm on the team. Was he a mentor to you guys, or did he kind of like?
Which one now? Grant, he was been over here in Eastern Texas, and like, I think that like, one of the things that was always fun about competing with, I felt like I was always underestimated. So Grant would tell me stuff like, yeah, if you ever make the team, I'll go on with you. And I think he was like, yeah, you're right, this big, tall, retarded dude. And then it's like, you get on there, and he felt like I forced his hand, and so he did the team, and it was just like, he impressed so many things upon me, like teamwork. I think teamwork is the most important thing. Teamwork and humility rule the world. So it's like, man, if you can get that punched in your head, it's like, it's the deal.
Yeah. Oh, if you're like a nerd about the guy, and you just look back at the roster of those old teams, and you see the kind of the story going on, like there's something important that pops in there.
Oh, okay. Well, the thing was, like someone asked me not too long ago what was the best team that I'd ever been on, and I had to honestly say that during that stint, the best team was Jim Quick, Mark Milster, and Austin Eames, a team that never was because of hoof and mouth, right? Well, and then Jim would get a little bit pissed, and he'd be like, I thought that we were on the best team, and I was like, well, I was on that team. He's like, I know, and I was like, well, but that time I was the rookie, and I sucked. So, I mean, you had to, if you took me out of the equation, yeah, it was a great team. Bob Pethick, Shane Carter, and Jim Orr and myself, but I was the one they were dragging across the finish line. So it kind of, you know, you're at different points all the time.
Also, I wanted to talk about that because that 93 team with you and Shane and Jim and Bob and the alternates were Jim Keith and Dave Dutton.
Yeah.
It's like not Rushmore, the Terriers now. But what was it like then?
Oh, and the thing was, is like, see, the biggest misconception about the team is people think that you forge. You forge. You don't forge, you learn how to shoot horses. You learn, like everybody talks about whether the CJF test is a viable test or not. The CJF test is a great test. People are like, well, in everyday shoeing. In everyday shoeing, if you could just trim a foot and fit a perimeter fit, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, it's not more complicated.
No, it's not more complicated. You can't do better than the basics. Everybody's like, well, what about that little extra? If you take too much from the toe, you smash the heel. If you take too much in the heel, you distort the toe. It's one of those things where the CJF test, the AFA, in my opinion, needs to get behind the test and promote it even more because it's a do no harm kind of a test. And so when you get on the team with guys that are bad daddies, and when I say bad daddies, they were all busy. Jim Ford was busy, Shane Carter was busy, but that's where I learned the true meaning of if you want something done, you ask the busy man to do it. Because those guys had more on their slates than anybody, and they would just, we were all old school, we'd all bring in our paper calendars, and we'd say, we're going to be here, here, and here, and come hell or high water. Those kind of people, when they say they're going to do something, they do it. They don't just call and they're like, hey man, you know, Sarah's goldfish got killed yesterday, so we're going to have to take some time off and kind of have a few, you know, it's like, no, that doesn't work. It's like,
So what was it? I've heard you say before how much you're influenced by English, like your daily work, efficiency, the kind of history, tradition. So those would have been 92, 93 if you went for the first time.
Yeah.
You didn't have the internet, so you didn't know what you were reading.
Like you don't get the shoe list until the shoe list come over on some sort of facsimile, and you don't know when they come over on a fax what shadowing is shadowing or safing or anything. So you're looking at pictures that look like they come out of a dig in Egypt somewhere, and you're like, yeah, this is how, and then you see them in real life, and it's like, they didn't look anything. It's a way harder deal, and it was like, globalization's made things so much easier, but then, when you went to England, they spoke the same English, but it was a completely different culture.
Did Grant tell you, like, all right, we're going to go to Scotland, but they're not going to be?
Well, it's like, and I know that there's some English in the room and stuff, but the problem with Spud has told me all along is what happens is they've got like 40 some odd years of that competition and it's never left that island. Well, then the pressure starts mounting, and then basically you do it for king and country or queen and country, and then all of a sudden the person that is hauling the horses, they know that they want to put that nice gelding in the third spot. And you're like, can you blame it? Patriotism is, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's hard to make it completely flat and unbiased. And I think they've tried as hard as anybody to make it flat and unbiased. But what we didn't understand is when you go to England, they've already had a whole season of hunter shoeings and a whole season of shoeing. So basically it's such a tight net over there that, like, let's just say they start wanting to put a reverse check on the outside. Well, as the season grows, that becomes more popular. It almost becomes like a trend. Then by the time Stoney gets here, everybody, that's kind of second nature, what everybody's used to looking at. And then you're like, it's like everybody's wearing skinny jeans and you get off and you have bell bottoms on. Then everybody's like, and it's like, but these little idiosyncrasies, they've been building on these all show season long, and then you're way out of the loop when you get older.
You fall in the middle of it. And you don't even see it. So then when you don't shoot like those things, those trends that start trending over there, the way the heels are fit or whatever, you're not even close to being able to.
Do you like the main photos got over there though, or is it like?
Oh yeah, because over there everybody comes from the same. Everybody starts at the same starting point. It's like over there, everybody is an apprentice. You don't have an opinion until your 4-year apprenticeship is up. So you learn how to do things, and you're not like sitting there saying, well, I don't think. Well, if you don't think, then you don't go. You know what I mean? And so like, if you don't know how to clinch or pull or get into the system, then you're usually pulling leaves out of Mrs. Gutters at home. Because you got to do something productive.
Yeah, I know you had that full bullet shoot from when you heard the shirts over there. You're like, I couldn't believe it when I saw this thing for the first time.
Yeah. Danny Bennett had a 2-on-4 shoot, and I'd never seen it made. And now that hangs in my house. But like, what's amazing is that we evolved and we're catching up because we have learned how to 2-on-4. You know what I'm saying? At the time, it was like voodoo witchcraft. You looked at that shoot and you're like, I can't even believe they made it.
Yeah. So what you get? So that influenced you from then on all the way through all the years of the AFT, starting the WCB, having a process like that.
Well, like you just get obsessed. Like the team tried to come back, this team came back and they just didn't do as good as they wanted to do. Like they went through the rite of passage, they learned everything they wanted, but you just on the plane ride home, you already start thinking about building a better mousetrap. And you're like, and they've always known that our selection process isn't a good selection process. So then all of a sudden you're like, well, we have 350 million people in the United States and they have 82 million people in the UK. It's not that they're bred to be better people. We have great people over here, so we have to refigure out the learning process. And so we would have a convention where everybody would back in, set up their rigs, and we would let Billy Carruthers and Grant Boone come and whip the ever-living shit out of us. And not one of us saw how it happened because we were busy competing. And they loved that. And they were like, we sneak in, we show nothing, and we sneak out. And it's like, not saying that that's intentional, but what a great deal. You go over there, you can win that gold cup if you keep on winning it, and you really didn't have to show your hand to anybody. Because the people who were spectating weren't really in a position to pick up what they were seeing, and they were spectating because anybody that was worth their salt was competing. So it's like you can't convey the message. And so we were like, hey, let's everybody just compete at the same time so we really got no think tank. And so to actually go forward, you have to have go-arounds and you have to have people watch way more than they compete so that they're a student way more than they are a competitor. And it's like, once you do that, then all of a sudden you see the lamination come together and people, and we have to have more team events. And because horseshoers are individual entrepreneurs and they get to have their own opinion, and most of them shy away from being on a team when you have a person of equal talent telling you that you suck. That's just not something that people seek out that much.
Yeah. It's not that's kind of tapping into something that I want to talk about with the WCB. That's how I met you, obviously. And from that outside looking in, if you really weren't that interested in competing, it seems like the WCB, it can kind of be this attainable, unattainable thing, or it's just about forging, trinket making, this, that, and but having grown up in there as a farrier, it's like that. It's like a laboratory for tuning on your weaknesses, and like you learn how to act as a person, as a professional farrier, as a teammate. Like you said, the teamwork and humility make the world go round. And well, it is. If you hit the nail on the head, it's like the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball all ran into huge problems with giving 18-year-old kids $20 million. Like, what could possibly go wrong, right? It's like, and so they have programs, mentor programs, where you're like, all right, you're going to root for this
this guy your rookie season just so that you don't get hooked into bad things. Because $18 million or $20 million will take you down the road that you don't want to be. Well, we've also got that in, like, horseshoeing. Like, people get a little bit of success and then they're like, competition shooters are the best, man, we rock. And really, they're just a flag that says, I'm a dick, and no one wants to hang around me, and they get, oh, that's where the word like hammerhead comes in. So you've got, like, when you have categories and you have things, you do have mentorship where you're like, hey, bud, you want some stuff and you're doing good, but why don't you learn some manners? And like act like a human being and learn a little humility, because just because you can make a roadster and that kid over there can't doesn't make you able to say that. So I think that you have to have both cultures. You have to teach people the skill sets of shoeing horses, but you also have to teach them like you have to have some people that you respect. They're like, hey, tone it down and learn a little bit of manners, learn a little respect, learn that like just because you are handy, you're not the right hand of God, you know?
Yeah, but you always had, like, when you were young on the team, did you know that yet?
No, I wasn't.
You had to talk that.
I mean, I was like if I knew myself right now when I was 18, I'd punch myself in the face, you know? It's like you have to learn all that stuff. You're like when you're full of it, you kind of look back and you're like trying to make sure that you kind of correct these things. Because when you're a great competitor, just like when you're a great musician, I don't think that you're in the best place to be like this social diplomat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because like if you're gonna compete, you gotta get your hate on. Like if someone else is in the room, you gotta get your hate on. You're like, that dude's him, and I gotta. If you don't have a little bit of that, and it's just in a competition mode, but if you don't get your hate on, you're like, it's all right to take. I didn't really want to take that anyway. Like I want to destroy that.
Yeah, it's I just think it's whenever we come into the WCB, you're standing there on the other side of the door, like you go over here, hey asshole, you need to do this guy, man. Well, I can see you coming through your own life being taught that by other guys. Yeah, that's interesting to people.
Like Shane Carter and Jim and Grant. Grant was a big proponent in like teaching me to lead, you know, getting me broke to lead and stuff. And they would say, you need to act this way. And Bruce Daniels and Myron McLean, all those people are like, hey buddy, you know, and what became even more scary is I was that person. And then I was going to become president of the AFA. And they're like, you know, like, holy cow, what's that going to happen to the whole thing? So, you have to put on a bunch of different hats, but it's just maturity. I think horseshoers are like, granted, they're not making no $18 million, but there's no money like horseshoeing money, and you just start feeling a little full of yourself when you're driving a big truck and you're making good money, and then all of a sudden someone tells you that you suck when you're at certification, and that you really can't shoe a horse that good. You're like, I got this jewelry, got that house, I'm a bad daddy. You're like, well, you're a bad daddy because horses are resilient, not because you're a bad daddy.
Yeah, I think one of the ways we taught us that maturity is WCB, like you could get a pack of young guys in the category 1, and they just want like Troy Woods kind of exception now. They want to be first place all the time, second place, and you would always be like, hey, like focus on winning the group. Like exactly, the table's broken into groups. You're always here. You can't be thinking about getting here.
Well, people get on there and you have the table set up, and people are just looking at the shoes down here at the end of the table, and we're trying to make a culture to where like the number twos, I don't know if I can see. The number twos are sitting, they usually, the number system works out good because the ones are usually around the ones and the twos, and every once in a while you have someone like Troy Woods that comes in and all of a sudden you got a category 1 that's up there with the 3s and the 4s. But for the most part, people learn, and people, I'm like, man, you are making the shoes like you want to win the class, and you should be making your shoes like you want to beat all the number 1s, which is basics. Like, You can go way up the table against the number ones if you make things flat. You don't even have to have a heel cock if it has heel cocks on it, just if you make shoes that are nailable flat and look like a symmetrical shoe. And then if you can get people to slow down and do that, then they can go into the 2s. And then they can graduate into the 3s. And then by then your maturity level, because everybody thinks it's a 4G level, but it's more of a maturity level to accept how to learn. Because most people don't even know how to learn.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that sounds condescending, but it's like we have to focus on just, there's nothing better than the basics. But you have to like, hey, just stick to the basics, and they're like, yeah, and in the back of their mind there's a butterfly saying, yeah, there is better. And it's like, no, there's no such thing better than the basics.
I know for myself, I was one of the world's worst at just trying to lead past the basics and grab a little bit of luck and do good, and you end up a little further down the road than you should be. You don't have the basics with you.
And then on the other hand, there's just the thing is like I don't think that we need to be a trade where we take everybody and every stray dog and say, you should be a farrier no matter what. We're going to make it happen. I mean, some people just need to push on and maybe like cook cakes.
Yeah,
or just be on the D line and running the subway, and that's not a bad thing. It's like, but everybody like, no, everybody should be a farrier. It's like, all right. It's like, but some people don't have the aptitude or even are hardwired for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say that, and the environment you created is a lot more accepting and diplomatic than that, though. Where like you have a lot of patience for people who are trying to figure it out.
We have a lot of patience as a community, and I like we've tried to set up a WCD where we have novice, and everybody who calls and says they were going to compete at a contest, I always try and talk them off the ledge the other direction. Everybody's like, oh, I'm coming and go to be a 3, and I'm like, hey man, why don't you come in and be a 1? And they're like, what do you mean? Pretty happy. We were in Western Tuscaloosa, and I won the Open there, so like, I'm going to whip everything. And you're like, no, dude, just come in as a 1. And then when they're done, they're like, yeah, I'm happy out of the 1, because the handicapping system goes from category 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it works really, really well. And the people that are in their categories, they do really well. They're trying to beat the people in those categories, and then they go up. But if you come in and you're just big gunning it, then it just seems like everybody becomes disillusioned and disheartened, because I think that their goals are not realistic goals.
Yeah. Well, with obviously you get to start the World Championships next year, and talk a little bit about how the first set of WCBC in Calgary, that was, I don't know for sure, but that had to be like the North Star in your life or in your career.
Did you get to do it?
No, well,
or winning,
competing in it, winning in it, doing well.
Well, Calgary was tough, because Calgary, it was, some people prospered in it, some people didn't. To me, there was too much time on your hands. You did a class, and then you have to walk around the showgrounds and stuff like that. And so I thought about it too much. Like I was right there with Austin. Like Austin would puke a bunch and stuff like that. He'd like get too stressed out, and I was a lot like that. I feel very fortunate to win it. I would not trade it for anything in the world. It taught me so much. But I think I did good in a contest that I did not like. I didn't like it at all. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it isn't a good thing. It was a great thing, and it was set up good. But another thing that I didn't like about it is that you never knew the flow of anything, because they would place the results, but you never got to see any of the other shoes. They never saw it, and they had a formula for judging the shoes, and you never really quite knew. Like when I judged Calgary, I knew less about how to win Calgary than whenever I never judged Calgary. I was like, I'm more confused now than I was, because I got to see the inside track, and I was like, I don't think I understand Calgary now. So Calgary was, it's a great thing, because it brings, any international contest brings everybody together, and
the Irish are a little bit different than the Australians, and you learn different cultures, and you learn more about different people. And we do need a true world champion. And so it was like, you went up there, and the classes, see, and another thing is like, Calgary got kind of out of skew just a little bit because Grant was a big influencer in Calgary. Well, Grant's completely and utterly was in a different league as far as speed than everybody else. So what they did is they started shortening the times down, ridiculous times, so where you had to do this astronomical feat in little or no time. And so, and Grant obviously liked that, because it's like that cut the wheat from the chaff, and he was very good at it. But I think that I tried to go just a little bit different direction at the WCB and give a little bit more time. And if in 5 years people are making such good shoes that you couldn't replace anything all the way down to 17, I think that would take away some time. But I think that what we ran into, like Calgary, is we didn't have the right rules in place for match play, and people were making fast, unpractical hunks of shit instead of nice, molded horseshoe shoes. You know what I mean? And so we had to gear that back to where, because match play is supposed to make you efficient, because no matter what, in this room, the people who make the most money are the ones that spend the least amount of time under a horse, and they fit fast. Right. Fitting fast is where all the money is made.
Yeah. The deal with Calgary, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, like, it seemed like a pretty exclusive experience. Like, it created all the heroes that we have in our trade in the UK and here in Canada and all that. But I have this like narrative in my head where the WCB is kind of like a democrat. It gives that experience to all of us, you know.
Yeah, that's like, I'm a polarizing person. Like, there's probably a lot of people out there right now that do not like me one bit, and there's a lot of people who like me a lot, and I think both those people are right. But having said that, I always feel good that people realize that when they come to the WCB, that it's way beyond me, and they don't have to know me. They don't have to be on the inside track, and they don't have to know the influencers to do good at a contest. And that's what keeps a lot of people from competing, is the fact that they're like, I don't want to go until I know. And you want it to where some, like, and a good example of that is when we were in Denver one year, Chad Chance gets out of the cab. It's like 76 below, and he's got these Puerto Rican fence climbers on, and he's walking through the snow. And he'd never been to any of our contests. I don't know if he's out there or not, but he comes, and he don't really, like, someone had told him, like, this is where you need to go to get on track. So he's like, and Chad, he's like, well, I'm going to go where I need to go to get on track. And so he comes, and he doesn't know anybody, but one weekend in Denver, he knows everybody, and he wins the class, the sliding plate, and he does good. But it's like, I felt like I didn't even know Chad. I mean, I'd seen a few videos that he'd done, but I didn't know him personally, and I feel like that's what you want to create an environment where people who don't know squat are just as welcome, and they don't feel intimidated when they come. Because that's what you want. You just want to be cool. You want to be a Jimmy Buffett concert with a lot of, like, education involved.
Yeah, I think that just always, I'm always searching for a way to stay everyone. Like, you don't understand, like, you can not know how to do any of this shit, and you show up, and you invest, and all of a sudden all of a sudden at the convention, I can hear you talk.
Exactly. Well, and they're like, there's things that have specialized and turned in, like the AFA. I think that, like the AFA hangs its hat. I think it should hang its hat on certification and continuing education and the convention. I think that they have a corner on that. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world. And it's like, I wanted to introduce a system to the English, because they have this team competition, and that should be one of the motors, is if we ain't won it, we should try to win. Because I don't care what anybody says, if there's not a person in this room, that if you had a kid that went through the 4-year program and he came and, if you had a kid that came through the process and he came and rode with you, you could make a ton of money that week that he was with you. You're like, you're fixing to print some money. And it's like, so those kids are good. And so like we have to reproduce that. So the WCB is all about going to county shows, teaching kids how to get into the information highway and get networking to where they went and worked with other people. And it's like because the goal was, and then you just get heartbroken because then you make this machine and then they're like, but you can't come. And I'm like, all right.
Talk about that. I've heard you say before the WCB, the main contributor to the attrition rate for people quit coming to contests is success. And like, I know, well, you get a business, you get kind of handy, you get a business going, and all of a sudden you got more things to attend to.
I think the elephant in the room is the fact that people are like, well, I don't want to practice. I don't want to do that. Well, people like with Facebook, with the invention of Facebook, you don't see it. Like, listen, Joe Bob says he doesn't like to practice that much because he's a family man. And then you look on Facebook and Joe Bob spends $32,000 a year on snowmobile parts. And he goes snowmobiling. And he's gone on trips going snowmobiling constantly. We all have vices. And so like, what's really cool about competing is that you learn those skill sets and then you get better at shoeing. So, and like I say, what I learned from Shane and Jim and all them is you want something done, you ask a busy man to do it. And everybody is busy. I guarantee you everybody is busy. And so now I got off track.
Well,
I'll tune me up for a second.
One of the things I was thinking about when it comes to that, and looking and thinking about you, all you always got going on, but all of this that you always for a living, that you get, maybe it's like 10 years in, and like your business can really have a whole, like the tail's wagging the dog kind of thing. I've never known you to be in that, not long, but be in that situation. You've always been able to kind of keep a distance from your business without not letting the customer get the best of it.
Yeah, I like, you can't, you have to keep your business separate. But the thing that I was going to say is that we talk about the younger generation, they're this, but I am lucky enough in the WCB to be around the younger generation where you run across Dylan Crane, who bought his first house before he could legally drink alcohol. You have young people who have businesses that have money, and almost everybody quits coming to the WCB because they are making money and they got geared up in life and they're doing good. Very few are like, well, Craig just likes to drag people into his own misery where he's going to be divorced 14 times and be an alcoholic and be 2 trucks repossessed. That's not the case. Once horseshoers get lined out on success, there's money that follows. And it's like, well, them competition guys, those hammerheads. Those competition guys, those hammerheads are just people who go above and beyond. Because we all trim horses for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So it's such a stupid thing to say, well, I like to shoot a whole horse. And it's like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I've always thought of it as like, last couple of years not going to competitions, it's weird to just shoot horses for a living and that's it.
Well, you have to have goals. You have to have goals. No matter what, you start sliding backwards. And like Tom Willoughby said in his podcast, is it's like you have to take care of your body because you can't shoot good if you're hurt. Because your body you'll be like, you find yourself saying, that's good enough. Like, and then you're like, you're crippled. You can't. So you have to pace yourself. And I mean, I think that the golden years, everybody's like, you only got so many horses in you. But like you look at Mike Wharton, he's still like, there's a big difference between Mike Wharton's walk and Joe Biden's walk. Joe Biden ain't never shot a horse. Nor would they ever let him. You know what I mean? But it's sort of like, it's like one of those deals where I'm serious, you look at Mike Wharton walk down the hallway and he looks like a young man walking towards you. And it's like, that dude shot a lot of horses. You look at Billy Lewis, he's a little bit further down the scale, but he still does pretty good. I'll tell you what, it's like, everybody's like, oh, it's hard on your body. No, doing something that sucks is hard on your body. If you don't like it, then I think if you're an ice cream man, you're going to walk like you're a question mark.
Yeah, doing something that sucks is hard. Well, I'll wrap up what I kind of had to ask. If there's Q&A, we can do that now. Does anybody have any questions? You could ask either one of us a question.
I think we're good then.
Okay, we'll be done.